Hello and welcome to the Key Stage 4 maths lesson, and today we are going to be looking at graphs, and in particular drawing and plotting and interpreting graphs. So here's the lesson objectives for today. So to be able to accurately draw a graph, to be able to represent data in more than one way, and some of you will be able to apply your graphing skills to be able to plot equations. So this is combining the algebra that you've done with graphing skills, so starting to put it all together in the holistic picture. So the first thing I'd like you to do is list me 5 things that you think are needed to draw a good graph or line graph, bar chart. But can you list me 5 things that you think you need to do to draw a graph? You just want to pause the screen and just write 5 things you think you need for graphs. Okay, well done if you've done that. We are going to go through a few rules for graphs. So the number 1 is that you always use a pencil and a ruler. So always use a pencil and a ruler for drawing your graphs. Choose a sensible scale for each axis. So if all your data goes up to 10, you wouldn't go up in 10s, you'd go up in 1s. So choose a sensible scale for each axis. Remember that axes do not have to start at 0. You should label each axis and include the units in brackets. You need to plot the points carefully with a pencil. And for a line graph, you have to draw a line of best fit, which we'll go through when we get to line graphs. And this is the most important one. No matter what graph you're doing, always give the graph a title in pen and underline it. So we always need to give it a title and label the axes. Okay, so to start with, we're going to start looking at basic graphs. So these are the bar charts. And on the screen, you can see you've got something called a pictogram. Now, a pictogram is very similar to a tally chart, except we use pictures to represent different things. So if you look at the screen there, you can see at the bottom in the top corner you've got something called the key, and it says that every circle is the equivalent of 4 people. So every whole circle is the equivalent to 4 people. So half a circle, you'd have to half the number 4, which equals 2. So half a circle would equal 2, and a full circle equals 4. So we have a look at the question. Complete the missing information in the table, the pictogram. Favourite subject: maths, English, science, art, PE and history. The pictogram is where we draw the picture, that's the tally, and the frequency is where we add them all up. So can you just pause the screen, draw that out, and can you try and answer that please before we go through it? So this is just to get you warmed up, so can you pause the screen and try and complete that table? Okay, well done if you've done that. We're about to go through the answers. So the top one, there's 2 whole circles there, so that means there are 8 people. For English, there are 2.5 circles, 2 4s, and then you halve it, so 2. So 2 4s, add 2 equals 10. The science one is a little bit more tricky. This time we've got 2 whole circles, so that's 8. But then we've got 1/4 of a circle. So that's going to be the equivalent of 1 person. So that equals 9. Now for the bottom 3 questions, you need to finish off the drawings. And that's what they should have looked like. So you want to pause the screen and just mark what you've got. Well done if you've got it all right. Okay, so now I want you to try this one. It's a tally chart. So I want you to complete the tally chart. I want you to draw it out, and this one's about people's favourite animals. Remember, when we're doing a tally, the middle column, there's 4 downwards, and then there's 1, the 5th number goes diagonally, and you close the gate. So remember, it looks like a gate, so 4 downwards, and then a diagonal one for a tally. So can you ask the people in your house what their favourite animals are for the first two, and can you complete the tally chart? Remember to include yourself in the questionnaire, so remember to ask yourself, do you prefer dogs or cats, rabbits, hamsters or other? Okay, well done if you've completed that. Now we're going to start moving on to the bar charts. So Tim's class collects information about all their pets. They have 6 different kinds of pets between them. So this is from the previous information. I've made this one up. So this is the block graph you are making to show how many of each pet the class has altogether. The children have not yet put in the animal names under each column. Can you do this to them using the information below? There are 2 less cats than dogs. So we need to look at the tally chart and see which one's got 2 less. So that way you know which one's the cats and which one's the dogs. The number of fish added to the number of gerbils is equal to the number of dogs. So can you take a while just to try and work out what all that means, and can you try and interpret that graph for me, please? Okay, well done. So what graph would I use this data for? So if we look at the screen, we've got CD albums, CD singles, downloads, vinyl, so that music that's been sold. Which would they go into? Would they go into a bar chart, a pie chart, a line graph, or a distance time graph? So for this one, it's not distance time, there's no distance and there's no time. It wouldn't be a line graph. So that leaves it 2 that you could be, either a pie chart or a bar chart, and either answer is correct. Being as we're looking at bar charts, I want you to draw a bar chart for that information, please. So can you draw a bar chart for that information? Remember, you need to use a pencil and ruler. Label your axes with units and give it a title and underline it, please. So can you create one of those for that information, please? Okay, well done if you've done that. Here's another one for you to try. I've started this one off for you. So remember, the gap between all of the things at the bottom have got to be the same. So for the snake, I've done it 2 squares across. That means that for every other one, it has to be 2 squares across. Can you complete that one as well, please? Just to get you used to finishing bar charts. Okay, well done. There is one more if you'd like to try it. So this one obviously getting harder and harder. This time I've gave you nothing. You need to work out the scale that goes up the side, and you need to work out the gap along the bottom. So if you want to pause the screen and give that one a try for me. Okay, well done. And now we're going to move on to some past GCSE questions. So we're doing this because they can come up in the GCSEs, which will be sitting here soon. So Sophie asked the students in the class how they travelled to school. The bar chart shows some information about the results for everyone in Sophie's class. 4 students travel by car. Complete Sophie's bar chart. So you have to take the information they need to give you, and then you need to complete that bar chart. For the second question, you need to interpret the bar chart by adding them all together. So if you just pause the screen and give that a try, please. Okay, so this is the second set of questions from that question. So C and D. So I've copied the bar chart over for you to say I'm going to keep flicking back between screens. So can you pause it and try and answer the last 2, please? Okay, well done. So now we're going to move on to something called line graphs. So a line graph is a way of tracking something over time or plotting one thing against another. For an example, 2 scores in 2 different tests. They all have X and Y axes, and the same rules apply for these graphs as well. So use pencil, choose sensible scales, the exact same thing applies. The only difference is all line graphs need a line of best fit. So what kind of graph is that? Is it a bar chart, a pie chart, a time distance graph, or a line graph? If we go back to the example, you can see that the example was you can plot two things against each other, e.g. scores in two different tests. And if you have a look at the information on that screen, you can see that it is two different tests, a German mark and a French mark. That red line goes on between the points, and that's called the line of best fit. So we haven't got to join the points up, you just go have an equal number of points on each side the best you can. So what's that line called? Can you remember, and can you write it down? And now I'm going to play you a video on how to plot all the points. They are very similar to coordinates. So I'm going to now put a video on for you to watch to show you how to do it.
Hey guys, welcome to this Mometrics video on how to plot a line graph. First things first, what is a line graph? A line graph is a type of chart that helps you to visualize the relationship between two variables. Most often, it is the rate of change over time. You may also have multiple sets of data graphed on one line graph if the same two variables are related. So now, how do you actually make a line graph? Well, first, start by drawing your graph on your paper. The two separate lines represent your x-axis and your y-axis. The x-axis is the line that runs horizontally, and your y-axis is your line that runs vertically. Always label your axes. Next, you need to identify which portion of your data goes on which axis. So like in this set of data, which column would go on which axis? Your independent variable should always be on the x-axis, and your dependent variable should always be on your y-axis. Oftentimes, when working with graphs, the data you are given is dealing with the rate at which something changes over time. Well, this makes it easier for you to identify your dependent and independent variables, because time is always independent. You can't do anything to affect time. You are constrained by it. However, like with our data in this case, we can affect the growth of a tree within a given amount of time by manipulating certain variables like soil, fertilizers, catalysts, temperature, and so on. For this set of data, we know that time is our independent variable, so it goes on the x-axis. And we know that the height of our tree is the dependent variable, so it goes on our y-axis. Once you graph all your points with their corresponding x and y values, then you just draw your line, and that's how you do a line graph.
Okay, so that was the video on how to plot all the points. Can you give that one a try for me, please? I've tried to help you out, so I want you to plot it as a line graph. So I've put the scale on there, and I put the days of the week at the bottom. Can you give that one a try, please? To pause the screen and give that one a try. Okay, well done. And here is another one for you to try. So if you can try and plot that in a line graph. If you do need some help, I will put on in a minute the axes for you. Okay, so that's how the axes should look. Time along the bottom, temperature along the side. You need to choose the scale. And remember to send your work into the Edge Academy, please. If you still need the question, I'll put it back on the screen for you to pause again now. Okay, well done for doing that one. If you want to send your work into the Edge Academy so it can be marked and feedback should be given. And we are now going to move on to the final learning objective, which was to be able to plot an equation. Okay, so these are very similar to line graphs, but first of all we need to work out where to plot it. We're going to go through that now. So once you've done this, you can use it to help answer an algebra question. So here's the example. You want to plot the points for y equals x plus 3. And the first thing you need to do is draw a table which goes from -3 all the way up to 3. That means that we know what the value of x is. So, for example, for the first one, y equals x plus 3, that would be y equals -3 plus 3, which equals 0. So the next one along, -2, now x is -2. So it would be y equals x, which is -2, out of 3, which equals 1. Can you complete that table for me, please? And then we'll go through the answers. So can you try and complete that table? So pause the screen, draw the table out, and can you try and complete that table, please? Okay, well done if you've done that. So here's the answers. It'd be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we can use this to plot a graph. They become your coordinates to plot. So we put them together, and then that becomes your coordinates to plot. So we just group them together. Can you work out those tables for me, please? So can you calculate those tables for me, please? They start off easier and get harder and harder. Okay, so hopefully now you've got some completed tables, and I'm now going to show you how to plot these. Okay, so for the example, I'm going to do y equals x take away 2. So the first thing you need to do is complete the table. So if you want to pause the screen and complete that table, please do. Here's the answers for that one. And now I'm going to show you how to plot the coordinates. So the first one is -3 across, -5 down. So you can see I've plotted the point -3, -5, then -2, -4, -1, -3. And then you have to draw a line through those points. Now, these questions will always be a straight line. So you know if your points are in an exact straight line, you've done something wrong. Then label the line and check that all of the points are right. So that's how you plot them. So now, can I ask you to go back and plot all of those graphs that you've answered for me, please? So the tables that you've answered, can you plot those in a graph? To help you, most of the graphs will look like that. You might have to extend the axes, but they will look like that one. So you want to pause the screen, and can you plot the equations, please? And finally, we're going to go through the lesson objectives. I did say at the beginning that you'd all be able to accurately draw a graph. So if that's a bar chart, a line graph, or an equation, you've done that one. To be able to represent data in more than one way, so if you've done bar charts and a line graph, that's more than one way. And finally, you'll be able to apply your graphing skills to plot equations. So if you've just plotted those equations, you've hit the third lesson objective. So well done. Remember to send your work into the Edge Academy, where it will be marked and feedback will be given. Well done, and thank you, and I hope to see you all very soon.